Sharpness testing. So when it comes to testing the sharpness of your knife, you're going to see a lot of people out there that get kind of silly when it comes to testing edge sharpness. There's people that will do ridiculous things, and I swear almost every person out there has to make a comment about how that's not that sharp. Now, a lot of that's just a whole lot of, I don't know what you'd even call it other than just people trying to feel bigger than they are. So when it comes to testing a knife, there's three methods that I believe are simple and easiest and you can do pretty much anywhere. So the first method, and I'm going to list these in rank of sharpness. So the first one's going to be the sharpest, and the third one is going to be the least sharpest in the sharpness test. So the first one is shaving. So you look for a hairy spot on one of your limbs. Now, I would use my leg, but I can't really get it up the camera, so alright, so here we go. And I am going to, alright, and there's still some hair on the blade and some of the hair fell off. So shaving is an excellent way to test it. If you do this wrong though, if you're not very familiar with it, it's very easy to cut yourself, so take it gradually. If you're not somebody who does this, I do this type of sharpness testing all the time. I have hardly any hair left on my arms just because I'm always sharpening knives because I make and sell them. And this one's actually one that's going to go up for sale soon on my Etsy page. This is CPM 154cm and it's decently thick and it's got an elk antler handle. I love this knife and I would keep it for myself, but I also like making money. Now, the shaving test, when done correctly, works great. However, it can be messed up by either sloppy technique or choosing odd ways to travel with the knife. And I'm going to cover the other two methods and I'm going to go back and talk about how to do each one of them a little more correctly. So second one is going to be your paper slice. So you just grab a piece of paper and your blade should pass through it. Now, as the blade dulls, you're going to have to guide it a little bit more, but it's a good way to test that sharpness as well. And paper isn't too expensive. Now the third method is going to be the fingernail bite. So you take one of your fingernails, assuming that you have a fingernail left, you haven't chopped them all off, and you just get your edge down on your fingernail and your blade isn't going to slide around. You don't have to push very hard to do this, and if you do push too hard and your blade is sharp, you're very likely to wind up with a hole in your fingernail, which really isn't pleasant. But to give you an idea, take the back of your blade, slide it along, get that feeling, then take the front of your blade, set it on there, and it should sit still. Now, any one of these levels of sharpness, in my opinion, is what I would call a very workable edge. An edge that you could take out with you to the field, whether you're hunting or farming or just going about your daily life and you're a person who carries a knife. The fingernail edge is definitely not the most insane, but it does do most tasks. And so the fingernail edge is something that definitely works. And the other two tests will just take it a little bit further. You don't always have paper on you, but usually you have some kind of body hair that you can trim off. So to do the shaving test correctly, what you need to do is I would normally do it on my forearm because I can see where the blade is landing and I can watch it go and I can see the hairs fly off as the blade goes down. Now, when you're doing this, some blades, when they're really sharp, you can actually shave at a 90-degree angle, but I take it about, I don't know what that would be, maybe 40 degrees or so. But I take about a 40-degree angle and that's what I use to test the sharpness. You don't, if you're really steep, I mean, you can still take hairs off. You want to move your flesh just a little bit down, so if you're too light and you do it, nothing's really going to happen. And a lot of people, when I'm at knife shows, will want to take one of my knives and test it on their own skin. And that's fine. I wipe them off afterwards. It's one of those things where I wish that people would ask me before they do it. But I understand they're considering spending money. but they do it wrong a lot of the time, and then I have to take the knife and do it on my own arm to show them, yeah, it is that sharp. But so I go about here, press in just slightly, and move it down. And I already am losing the very short hairs that I still had. So that's how you do the shaving test properly. There's some other ways that you can do the shaving test. You can do it on your leg. When I run out of hair on my forearms, I do move up onto my upper arm, and I don't really have hardly any hair left except for, okay, I have a little bit right there. And I think I just took off some hairs off the back of my arm, so I have even less than I did before. Okay, so the paper slice. Now, people will do this test and they will do it incorrectly. They'll kind of hold the knife kind of limp and they'll go down in. Now, what you've done there is you've created a fake stop because you were limp with your hand. Maybe the paper had a wrinkle in it and your knife is stopping because of the looseness of your hand. You want to grab your knife firmly and move at a decent pace. And so I will grip my knife like so, very firmly. Now the reason why I'm showing you this is because when you're sharpening your own knife and you're in your home or maybe you're on the mountain and you're sitting there and you're going crazy because you're like, oh my goodness, my knife isn't as sharp as it should be, and you're just fiddling around and messing up. It's not that you're not getting it sharp enough, maybe. It's that you aren't doing the method correctly. If your paper has a wrinkle, if you're doing this outside and the wind is blowing and the paper's getting moved around, that can cause it too. So grab your knife firmly, hold your paper still, and that's how you make sure you do that test right. Grab the knife firmly. Now, with the fingernail test, I don't really know how you would mess this one up. You put it on your fingernail and you just kind of let the knife's own weight be what holds it in place. That's all you need to do. Don't drop it, because if you do, you got a good chance of cutting yourself up. Don't push too hard. At 90 degrees, this one still holds on. At steeper angle, still holds on. You don't want to go too steep though, because then the bevel behind the blade will be what touches your fingernail, slide right off, and if your fingers are like that, you're looking at a good cut. So when it comes to these methods, there's a right way to do everything and there's a wrong way to do everything. And if you're sharpening your own knives, maybe you don't have the most experience, maybe you have a little bit of experience, you've seen some success in your knife sharpening. Either way, you need to try and do your testing correctly so you don't wind up in a difficult situation where you're just mad at yourself because your blade doesn't seem like it's getting sharp, but in reality you're just not doing your test correctly. So there's some methods, some tips on how to do them right and how to avoid doing them wrong, and I'm going to put a link in the description and in the comment section down below to my Etsy. And even if you don't buy any of my knives, just checking them out boosts me in the algorithm, makes me feel good because I can see that people are looking at my stuff. But there's just some simple tests.